Great. Welcome to our MISchoolData Technical Administrator Update. This is a back to school version of our webinar series, and we do hold one of these throughout the year, each month, and sometimes if there's something special. So thank you all for joining us. Please click or choose the presentations in the chat if you want to follow along with us. We are recording today. And I know Rhonda's going to cover the first part of our presentation, and then you'll hear from myself and Cheryl Twitchell from CEPI. You're muted.
Sorry.
Yep.
Today we're going to cover with our back to school update the roles and permissions that are associated with secure access in MISchoolData. Next, we're going to help you go through the process to activate My Login for Business and assign appropriate roles and permissions. I know that this is one of those back to school items that everyone is always so anxious to remove old users and add new ones. You're going to also be able to connect these user roles and responsibilities to the required permissions, and that will also include the accountability aspect. Hopefully, you will apply this new knowledge today to effectively administer these user accounts and be able to manage the permissions, and then build awareness of the available outreach efforts, the professional learning opportunities we're going to share, and be able to communicate those channels out to your stakeholders in the MISchoolData platform. All right. Also in the chat is the link to the attendance. If you could just go in there and name first, last name, email, district, and if you know which region you represent. And then if you want to share any comments or if you need any follow-up, feel free to let us know because we use this space for our outreach analytics. So there's your attendance sheet. All right, our highlights for today, as I mentioned with our learning objectives, we're going to start with defining the technical administrator roles and responsibilities, move to generating user accounts, user requests in a two-part section, understanding the permissions, the user roles and permissions. Cheryl's going to also share with us some recently released, the demo data available and what's coming soon. And then we'll conclude with the learning resources related to outreach and communication. So just a reminder, our MISchoolData is a statewide leadership team that helps with the professional learning opportunities and the partnership we have with CEPI. Right now we have the 10 regions. They are designated by the MESA region. So if you're not sure which ISD you represent, here's a little map of our great state and you can locate that for your attendance. And then our representatives, if you click the link to the statewide leadership team, you can either see their profile information, including our CEPI partners, as well as the link here for the SLT directory if you need to make any contact. So with that, that is our representation of our statewide leadership team. So I'm going to turn it over to Christy, who's going to start with defining the technical administrator roles and responsibilities.
Great. Thank you, Rhonda. So we have an account maintenance guide that is part of when you log in and you go under the administration and the managed users. And this guide will have an update. The update is pending. I found a couple screen captures that I had to change right before here. So anyway, it'll have all new screen captures and we'll provide additional information and some hints and tips. So that'll be coming probably in the next few days. I just need some other folks' eyes on it. But the original guide was written by Cheryl Twitchell, and she did such a fantastic job that there's just updates that are needed, for some of the screens, like on the permissions themselves, so that when people go through and they recognize what the permissions look like and not what they used to look like. So those are the updates that I'm doing. The user accounts maintenance guide also has a table of contents and all these items that people can jump right to the area that they need. And it also has links embedded into it for other resources. So that's been very, very helpful. What are the roles and responsibilities for a technical administrator? Well, activating accounts is the biggest one, but maintaining accounts is equally as important, and updating roles, permissions, deactivating accounts, and we'll go through a couple of those or some quick ways to do that. Monitoring usage. And sometimes this is just as simple as looking at a particular district's users, and you can quickly go down and figure out who didn't change their domain, maybe for a particular, they changed their email domain, but they didn't change it in my login. But you'll be able to see that because that's what that would show. Our education entity master updates and when data is actually pulled from the EEM into MISchoolData. We have a process for that. And then finally verifying preview and accountability are added to folks that should have that capability. And we're finding that sometimes that particular permission gets missed, and we've got these folks that really need to see when the M-STEP scores are available in preview, and they can't because they don't have that particular permission. We have a list of all the user administration contacts and the general contacts for MISchoolData. This used to be 4, now we're down to 2 people. So that it makes it a little easier for folks to contact the key people at each ISD. And these are updated by information that we receive from the General Education Leadership Network, GELN, as well as some other folks when they let us know that things are changing. So this is a living document. It is linked within the MISchoolData portal, and it's updated monthly. In this particular, this just shows where the administrators and accountability administrators are located here in MISchoolData, so that you can see where to find that list. But it's actually linked in about 4 or 5 different places. Same list. If you're administering users, you would first have to you have to be signed in. So you have a secure sign-in, and then you're going to choose the admin tab. That will bring a drop down and we'll have manage users. So it'll say administration and then manage users. The support menu has quite a bit of information there, but in manage users, you would see also the downloads for the FERPA forms or the user account request forms, review of the student privacy policy, as well as links to the federal online classes for student privacy, and then protecting student privacy. All of those are part of the links that are part of managing users under administration. I am so happy. I am so happy to tell you that the filters work, the searches work, and it's quick, and it doesn't do the spin of death. And I'm just ecstatic. So you can tell. Anyway, I had to look up for a particular person that had a common name today. And I said, you know what? I know that I don't have a bunch of schools named Mayo. So I did a search on @Mayo. That's all. The @ and then MIO. Even though there was more to the particular email address, but it just came up and displayed exactly what I needed fast. And I was able to then move on to my next step in troubleshooting. So you can look at all users, active users, inactive users. I usually just keep it at all. And I really didn't even have to filter to use that special search that I just told you about. It just worked like it's supposed to. So anyway, I did want to bring this to your attention. So if you haven't been into user administration in a while, it will just work. Okay. Please keep in mind, though, that if you're searching for a term like Fitzgerald or Washington, things like that, you may get Washington, a lot of different Washingtons, for instance. Okay. So, or Jackson, right? You're going to get Jackson ISD, you're going to get Jackson School, you're going to get all kinds of things. So I try to think about what's the most unique thing about this user or this group of users that I'm trying to find, and I use that as my search tool. This is the best kept secret of MISchoolData right here. The fully configurable roles in managed users. So by using the ISD user, district user, and school user roles, not worried about what position someone's in, but what are their responsibilities, I can use these fully configurable roles and choose any permission that they've been authorized to have. This is particularly key when you're working with some folks that wear a lot of hats, and we all do. We all wear all these hats, and we needed to have these fully configurable roles to meet the requirements of our jobs. So fully configurable roles, and if someone is really set on having their position listed in their account, well, you can put it in the position area and not worry about having it as a particular role. Oh, here we are again. So these are just as a reminder, the three that we use. And we can set permissions for everything except for the managed researcher file. So that particular one is for our state colleagues when they're working with the researchers through an approved IRB. The user maintenance, looking at the different timelines for reviewing accounts, we're looking at them in the fall. I look at them mid-year and also at the end of year. Just it's one of the things that I do. I want to make sure that I have the right people in the right spots and take away rights for people that shouldn't have access. So that gets tricky because people do retire at any time of the year. It adds a little spice to the things that we do for user administration. Any questions so far? Okay. Generating user account lists. We covered this a little bit for our annual review of user accounts, but that search that I was talking about now will work. I've not had it fail at all. And this has been for a couple of weeks here. And I used to have to choose different things within the filters, and we no longer have to do that. But those filters can hone it down. So if you do have a large number of users in an area, you can look at user ID in the My Login and such. But please avoid sending, if you're going to send like a list to districts to verify, please avoid sending the My Login names in that email. Take them out of the download file. Just delete that column, okay? Because that is the name that someone would use, and we do have bad actors around. So I do avoid sending the My Login names in the email attachment. I do allow folks some time to get back to me on these things. I also will go and look at particular groups that we work with maybe school improvement groups, and verifying those logins ahead of a meeting that might be happening in September. So those types of anticipation of needs really help bring down the number of user requests and this, oh my gosh, this is an emergency and it's on fire. We did talk about this. The ability to download is on the far right of the screen. And it comes down in an Excel file. It does list every permission that someone has, and those columns would need to be adjusted, of course, but all the information is there. It's absolutely wonderful, and it does give the last login date for someone, which I find invaluable when I'm working with a user and they say, I used to be able to get in like last week, but now I can't log in anymore. And I look and they've never logged in, and of course I have to keep that to myself, and I gently walk them through the process, but it helps me know that it's not a system issue. It's a person handshake, high touch issue. So we talked about this already with the searching for the filters. We can move on from this one. And I had a lot more to say when the filters weren't working, and I knew some were. So I apologize for that repeat, but everything is working wonderfully. So if you do have issues in this area, though, please let us know. Cheryl has been absolutely stellar about putting in ticket requests for corrections that need to happen, and then the developers can do their work. But we don't have any of those right now. I'm going to pass things to my colleague, Cheryl Twishel from SEPI.
All right, thanks, Christy. I'm going to talk about making changes to existing users. Probably not going to say anything that you guys don't already know, but these are just reminders and maybe some helpful tips or hints along the way. And of course, we'll start with the user request form that they'll need. Basically, when anybody is going to be making changes to their account, if they've moved to a new location or they need new permissions, that will require an updated security agreement form. So this is just a link here in case you guys don't know where to find it. And then again, when you get to the manage users screen, you would want to locate the person in the manage users table using that search functionality, and you'll see them there and then be able to select them. And you select them by clicking on the hyperlink for their My Login ID. Once you actually select that, then the screenshot on the right shows their user profile information. And this is just a reminder, you can look at that information, double check their email address. If it's wrong, you'll want to let them know to make sure that they get that updated. A reminder that we cannot update that email address for them. They have to do that through the My Login page. So they're responsible for maintaining their personal information through My Login. And then, of course, when it comes to updating the accounts, once you've located it, then at the bottom half of the screen, you're going to see what they currently have. And if they need to change a location or add a permission, obviously this is what you're going to see. You click on the permissions to view the permissions list. You can add or remove them and save the changes. Or if they've retired or they've left your district or the entity or whatever, you can click on the remove hyperlink to remove their access to your location.
Cheryl, can I add something here?
Sure.
That one. Recently, because we have new people that are administering accounts, there's a tiny little checkbox that says signed authorization form. Folks are going in to manage an account and add a user, and then they can't bring up permissions or locations, and that's because that little checkbox isn't checked. So just need the signed authorization checked, and then you can choose the locations and the permissions.
Yep, right there.
Thank you.
And actually, the next screen shot will actually show you that a little bit more. So part of the maintenance and managing the accounts is there's a comments section there. There's a freeform text box that if there's changes made, like it used to be like maybe a role had changed, but now that we've got the configurable roles, I think more people are starting to use those. But if there's something noteworthy of a change, you can put that in that comments box so that you can follow the flow of what's been happening with that person. And then, of course, like Christy said, that signed authorization box, if that is not checked, then that permissions box and all that is grayed out. You can't do anything until you actually check that box. Once you get all that filled out, then it's just a matter of what you want to do. For deactivating users, back in the old legacy system, there used to be like a bulk deactivation thing. You could deactivate a bunch of users at one time. We can't do that in the redesign system. So in the redesign system, it's an individual user at a time. And we kind of touched on it already. Basically, to deactivate account, you're just really removing the location and role. So you click that remove next to whatever location role assignment they have. Then their account changes from active to inactive. And that's how you deactivate a user. Um, uh, again, just situations where you might where you have to deactivate if somebody has transferred to a different location, different ISD, or they've retired and they no longer need access to MISchoolData. Those would be examples of why you would want to deactivate an account. All right. And retirees, like I just touched on. And again, just clicking that remove button to remove their permissions, and you're all good. So if they're changing districts, something to note that if that they don't need, well, if they're changing districts, they wouldn't need to request a new my login for business account. You only need one. That's the whole point of the single sign-on, is to have one user account for all the applications that you're working on. What they will need to do, however, is contact the technical administrator at the new location to have their permissions and access granted. So they would have to fill out a new user security agreement form and work with that new ISD technical contact to get their account set up. For the existing location, then you would just remove their permissions, their location, and then from your end, you'd be all good. And Christy did touch on this a little bit earlier. We just put a note at the bottom that periodically we will do our user inactivation for accounts that have had no activity for the last 18 months. We're getting ready to do that again. I'm getting the final technical parts of it, for my understanding, settled. And then we will be doing one this fall. Typically, we would do it like around September, October. I don't know if it'll happen then, but by the end of the year, we will be doing some user inactivation. So just wanted to give you a heads up on that. And yep, I think we've kind of talked about this. So let's just go to the next slide. And again, changing the buildings roles. I think we've kind of touched on that, but I mean, you guys know, I'm sure, how to use the location drop-down menu. So if they have changed a location, or if you need to add a new location, obviously, select the ISD that they're in, district and or school that's associated with those, with that ISD, to pick the location and then add whatever permissions are necessary. Any questions on that?
I have a question. I have a question on the permissions requested. Sometimes I get confused because some people are a certain role. They're a principal, they're a superintendent. Am I supposed to just be selecting a role for those people? Because sometimes they'll just go in and seem like they just check random things that don't align with the principal, preset permissions. And so I never know, should I do their random list, or should I just select that they're a principal?
Well, and I know later in the presentation, Christy actually has a section that addresses permissions for roles. And I do think principal is one of them. So I think I'll let Christy address that when we get to that section, if you don't mind holding off, Sarah.
Sure, thanks.
Okay, all right. Any other questions? All right. Oh, and look, I get to continue. Yay. User requests. So we'll talk about that process a little bit. When you've got somebody that's brand new to MISchoolData, they don't have a MISchoolData user account. They'll have to go through the My Login process to request access to MISchoolData. So we've just kind of stepped this out a little bit. We do have a quick start guide, the link there for that. that will walk you through that process that you can actually share with these people, that will give them screenshots and good directions to be able to do that. But basically, they will be creating a MyLogin account, and it'll have to be verified. They'll have to request access to the MISchoolData app, and there is a link to request access. And when you get through on the MyLogin screen, and then they'll receive an email where they have to verify their email address. That's part of the setting up their account process. And then once all of that is done, then they will have a link on their MyLogin page for MISchoolData. And then at that point, once they have their request for access to MISchoolData completed, they'll complete that user security agreement form and then contact you or, the appropriate ISD technical administrator to have the account set up. So that was kind of like the whole process in one, but I think we break it down a little bit in the next slides. So, and again, here we go. So this is the MyLogin screen, and if they don't have an account, they would just click on the Create an Account button down at the bottom. If they do have one, they would enter their username and password, and then on the next slide, then there is a link off to the side that would tell them to request access. And as a reminder, here's a list of the user administration contacts and the user form. Obviously, they'll need to fill out the form and then contact you. And there's the full form and the link to the form. And so there is the FERPA compliance questions. It's still required. So they'll have to fill out that section of the form and make sure they have an understanding of that. The next slide, it breaks it down by the different types of permissions. So the first part is administration, whether they'll be administering accounts or not, and then the different levels of administration that they have, whether it's just regular user administration or accountability. The next section is access to data. So that's going to talk about like that the early childhood with sensitive information, the student pathways with sensitive information, the professional learning resources. It was the TNT page, and then preview and whether or not they can see like the student level PII information. So that would be their access to the data. And then the next part is all of the accountability roles. So you'll want to be careful, which items or permissions you give them depending on their needs, whether or not they're just viewing the data or if they need to be able to download it and or edit it or whatever. So those roles are there, or I should say those permissions are there. And then the last form is really, they're providing you all the information that you need to be able to manage their account. So, what district and or location they're requesting access to, their name and signature, the date, and their email address. So, and there's even a checkbox that says, have you requested access to MISchoolData? So you can work with them if they haven't. And then obviously the superintendent approval, because they need to have that sign off from the superintendent, basically saying, yes, we give them permission to view whatever data they have requested access to. The FERPA training. I don't know, Christy, maybe you want to talk about this one?
Sure. We're including the FERPA 101 training that the federal government provides through the student privacy area. It's an online class. It's actually very, very good. And we also have our own EduPaths class on the next screen. That is our FERPA and our basics for MISchoolData. So it's just a way that if you do have somebody that you're onboarding, they've never been through a FERPA training before, or understanding about student privacy. We've really used both of these, especially with we're running it through our new teacher academy, for instance, because there's just some information that those folks aren't used to seeing. And so they might not know what can be shared and what can't be shared, especially if someone's being insistent. So the federal FERPA training goes through those kinds of pieces of information. On the next screen is the EduPaths class for our FERPA compliance. And that lends itself more toward MISchoolData, and is a much shorter version than than the federal FERPA class. So we do ask folks to go through this FERPA compliance if they are administering accounts, for instance. And many districts already provide FERPA training to their through their staff meetings and PD and things, but we want to make sure that it's available to people at their fingertips.
All right. Any questions on that section?
Cheryl, just a reminder for people that more and more things are going through My Login for Business. I think our ORS login now goes through My Login for Business, and the one that we use for MISchoolData really needs to be tied to the school email account, not a personal email account. It has to be an account where they can get email. And if they have changed districts, they've got to change the email address before we start the whole process of getting them hooked up to their new district, because they have to verify that they've received an email. So it's just something that people get confused in sometimes, like, but I already have one to get my license plates. It's like, yeah, hopefully that's your personal account.
Right.
But
Yeah.
this is school.
Thanks, Kathy. That's a good reminder.
Excellent, Kathy. Thank you.
All right, then we'll move on to the next section, and I will hand that back over to Christy.
Great. Thank you. So understanding permissions and some of the permissions that would be for particular positions within a district or ISD. First, the ISD contacts are responsible for understanding the permissions, and we've tried to give a very good and detailed description of what each of these are. Sometimes we get generic, I don't know, the person checks every box and slides it in front of the superintendent and they sign it. And there's some of those that we can talk to, but if they truly have those roles, who am I to say that they don't have it? You know what I mean? Who am I to say that they shouldn't access if the superintendent has signed for them to have, to have access? So we'll be going through each one of these, and hopefully it'll become clear too. It does get tricky. So sometimes people will call and say, I don't know how to fill out the form. I don't know which ones that I really need. And typically it's these questions that are here. An elementary principal, for instance, they're going to want to see state assessments and preview. They are most likely going to want to see the third grade and early childhood sensitive data. All right. They'll want to see assessment data. Do they need access to the special ed dashboard? Probably. Accountability tasks. Now this one gets a little trickier, and we'll be covering what those accountability tasks are and when you would not provide that particular permission. So the special ed dashboard, the permission for preview data needs to be checked, but really anyone with a secure login can access the special ed dashboard. It is a secure function. It isn't something that the public can see. So if you're working with, maybe it's a parent advisory committee, a PAC, and you're talking about this, or somebody's talking about the special ed dashboard, that PAC members will not be able to see the special ed dashboard unless they have an account. So, there's certainly areas in MISchoolData everywhere within MISchoolData that addresses special ed can still be accessed by the public. It's just not all put into a dashboard. It's within each of the different items and areas for that particular report. So if you're special ed, people have not seen the special ed dashboard, and I ran into one of those today. This would be an excellent thing to send a short email to your special ed director, assistant Sue, with a link, for them to be able to access that dashboard. I think they'll be pretty amazed at the information that's there that they don't have to look up in an individual manner. Questions on the special ed dash? Okay, we can move on then. Within the user request form, we have made it longer because we wanted to show what was really occurring within these permissions. Oh, there's different levels. The open to the public is pretty much everything except for the preview of certain data like the M-Step scores. We would like the schools to be able to see them before they are available to everyone. We do have some other items like that. And that special ed dashboard we talked about, but there's parent dashboard, there's salary information, the base salary information, there's information about the schools, how big are they, how many teachers, etc. All that is available to the public to be able to look at. In the secure area, we're looking at being able to see individual student level information in some of the reports. So when you're thinking about providing someone with secure access, their position or their responsibility, they're going to be able to see that student level data. So we do want to make sure that that it's appropriate. And again, we can't prescribe that. We don't know, there may be roles in a consultant role that they wouldn't be seeing student level data, they'd be seeing more aggregate, right? So that does have to walk through the My Login for Business. Accountability user. The accountability user is a role that can be chosen, but a far better one to choose would be ISD user, district user, or school user. Because with those particular roles, I can choose the accountability responsibilities that someone would have, and be able to give also additional permissions that are restricted from the accountability user. So we're in a little bit of a transition. This will be the year that toward the end of the year, hopefully we'll be able to retire some of those other roles because we'll be completely using ISD user, district user, or school user. Fully configurable means everything. So your ISD staff, curriculum specialists, your superintendents, etc. You're looking at what information do they need available to them. And with the accountability side, you'll see at the very top under administration, all the permissions have been reorganized and all the administrative pieces are in the top. And then we talk about access to data. And then there's a whole separate area for accountability. So this really helps folks be able to see, okay, what do I need for my job? What am I requesting to be able to perform my work? Usually the accountability role is you keep it really tight. Usually a district would have maybe one person that is doing the full accountability and submitting issues. However, they may be requesting information from a principal. So the principal will need to look at the downloads, the accountability issues for their building, and maybe the accountability student data reports. Again, it depends on how the district is actually working through that accountability process. And everybody's different. That's one thing I've learned through these years. Every district is different on how they want to handle this. Some keep it so tight, it's only at the board office level. It's only at the district office and no one else has access to it. So it truly depends on what the flavor is in the process for the, each district. And the accountability, that's a great question, Sarah. The accountability refers to the district reports and such for accountability, and whether the data coming from that's being looked at by the state to determine districts that maybe are a priority school and things like that. That's what the accountability is for. So you may have a situation where it needs to appeal because the data needed to be, additional information needed to be added, or the data needed to be changed. I don't know if there are any accountability people on our call today that could help me with that, answer that question. Okay, so it's usually not, it's not student level accountability, it's accountability for the building. When you get the index, the school index, for instance, right? It used to be school grades, but those have gone away for a little while. Good question. Thank you, Kathy. School index stuff in particular. The districts also, this is all looks the same. We're looking though at the fully configurable for being your district and your central office staff. Some of the roles, like if you picked a principal, it would automatically have default pieces. But I've found it's much easier with the many hats people wear to look at what the function is that they're doing and what has the superintendent allowed them to access. We're not the restrictors, we're the enablers and the consultants back to that district. Same thing with school user. Okay. Same thing with school user. At one point, I used to keep this all on one sheet, so we didn't have to go through 3 slides. However, it caused more confusion. I just wanted you to see that that's exactly the same. So fully configurable role based on the location that user has been assigned to see. So you're assigning them a school, and then you're assigning them the permissions that go with that school in accordance with the authorized sheet, the authorized forms. Okay, and this is, you know, when you see school improvement people, okay, is it a school improvement person for just that school, or is it a district school improvement person? Some districts have a K-12 look at school improvement. And so even though a school improvement person may be at a school, they will choose a district user for them because they're part of a K-12 team. So that's why we get into these little nuances, and we can't just know. We can't know. They need to fill out the form and have that authorized so that we can help them have access to what they need. FERPA compliance questions, these are just reminders. We've thought about many times of saying, you know, do we really need this anymore? Can we just have a click box? But it does start conversations, and we found so far that, you know, we want to keep it here. If we end up where it's just a duplicate and folks don't need the reminders anymore, then we'll end up taking it off. But for now, it does help the conversation and reminder of what parents, for instance, are allowed to have and what constitutes FERPA, you know, for a Family Equal Rights to Privacy Act. Administration permissions. We've talked about the administered users. Create accountability. That's the one that the ISDs, each district needs to have an accountability person, at least one. And then we have the rest of the accountability users and administrators for underneath that person. So most ISDs are handling that at an ISD level. We do have a couple of ISDs that have bequeathed the administrator users to a local level. And so, you know, they can still do that with the configurable permissions. We talked about this, all the different account administration permissions. We've tried to arrange these the exact same way that you'll see them on the online application. The access to data permissions, again, this used to be kind of a treasure hunt, but since the form has been redone and lists what exactly that person has access to, it's streamlined this quite a bit, and there's not any guessing. The access to data, when we're looking at student level, or it says facilitator level data, the sensitive areas are the student pathways. So student pathways, and it does list that it's college and university records as well. So there's 4 files that will be produced if someone has access to that. And they can actually see the college course grade that a student received. Okay, so you're really looking at maybe that follow-on ladder. I know, I heard of a CTE project where they were looking, the counselors were looking at the follow-on for some of their CTE students. This one gets tricky because the students are adults. So there's some additional caution that we need to take there. And when we were looking at this, I asked my nephew if I could have access to his record because he's an adult. And he said, I love you very much, Aunt Christie, but I'd rather you did not. And I said, okay, all right, because I wasn't looking at it as educational purpose. I was looking at it to see how can I see these reports and then be able to describe them, to others, right? Early childhood and the early childhood and sensitive information, also like free and reduced lunch informations, or economically disadvantaged shows in these reports as well. And I know we hold those very, very tight to the vest. And then the student performance data, of course, and these can be seen student by student. Also the graduation and dropout reports, that application, you can see students that are in particular cohorts for that graduation and dropout information. So, and the good news is there's only 4 areas where they could access it student level. So as long as we can avoid those for only people that need them and have an educational purpose. The accountability permissions, these are pretty self-explanatory, and these were created in conjunction with the Michigan Department of Education. So how could people be able to download student accountability reports? Who needs them? The principals need them. Maybe your school improvement people, depending on how that district works with school improvement. So I know you keep hearing me say that question or that statement, but we certainly have learned that everyone does not work the same way. Sensitive accountability permissions are there in red. The creating accountability issues, that information goes to MDE. Okay, so if you have somebody that is communicating with the Michigan Department of Education, it needs to be someone of authority. You wouldn't want every question of accountability for somebody going to MDE. So that's why you're going to want to hold that really close to the vest, as well as maybe editing those accountability issues and certainly the submission. So that's who's the voice speaking for that district regarding accountability. And this is just the form that shows where those accountabilities are and goes through and does further descriptions. Signatures, key areas that people forget to fill out. The My Login for Business username. I have had people make that up and they put in their birthday and something, and I know it's wrong because it's not in the right format. So I'm like, they knew they had to fill out, but they didn't know exactly what I was talking about or what the form was asking. And if you guys have ideas of how we can name that better, I'm all for it. But anyway, we work with those people that make up the number or the user ID name. We do use it for troubleshooting, and that's where it's used the most. Or if somebody has a really common name like Christy Martin, okay, very common name, Amy Jones, you're going to see so many that the search might be much faster to fill out those permissions if you have the My Login for Business name, much faster, okay? We need a signature on it. Some people turn them in and they've signed it themselves. And that works if they're the superintendent, but typically they're not. They just sign it. and send it in, and then we have to send it back. So that is a key area. So the person's signature as well as the superintendent. And if the other thing is if they've requested access to MISchoolData. Those are the areas that are the particular heartburn pieces. We talked about this, about the using the comments and the signed authorization, so we'll move past this one. And now here are the scenarios. So if I have a district assistant soup with accountability, and they don't talk to the state for accountability, they just need to be an advisor or provide input to the person that is actually going to submit things to the state. These would be the permissions that they should have, okay? And again, depending on their role. So I would be looking at them being able to download accountability student data reports. In order to do that, they need to see the student performance data, because otherwise there's nothing in the accountability report. And they need to see the accountability downloads and issues. So this is a person that is involved in accountability for the district, but they are not the designee to talk to the Michigan Department of Education. If I have an ISD consultant working with the districts, our ISD consultants, they want to have access to every district, and they want all of the rights that are associated here. And I have to be the one to tell them no, because it is educational interest. So they could see preview data, and if they're working with a particular district, they are viewing student performance data. If there are school improvement people and they're working countywide, they do have countywide access, but that is also done through a superintendent's approval, and it's written. So we do require that level. And it helps to have the process, because otherwise they want to know what Joe has, down the hall, and they don't have the same job. So, if they do, and they're working with a district and they need more of the permissions, they are welcome to have them. We just need the authorization. And that's our role, every one of us on the call. We need to know what they're approved to have. We don't get to just give it because, or not give it because we're mean. We just want to make sure that they have the right access to do their jobs. Okay. Sarah has a question about, are we saying that every district should have one person designated as an accountability? Yes, there should be one person in each district that has access to be the accountability communicator. There may be some smaller ISDs that do that for the districts, but I don't know who those would be. I know there are a few of our districts in Macomb that rely on a couple of the accountability consultants here at the ISD to work together with them, but the actual communication to MDE happens from the district. And you can communicate with MDE outside of MISchoolData. MDE will let you know what the protocol is depending on what the question is. That is absolutely allowable. That's really a inherent right from a district to Michigan Department of Education, and I know they're more than willing to help out. And
I'll just add in there, Christy, that they've got a dedicated help desk email box, and you can send emails to them. It's like mde-accountability@michigan.gov.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm going to, we're going to go through the rest of my slides. They'll be here for you. You can access the slides, but they're a repeat of what we've talked about before. I move right to Cheryl Twitchell's piece about the recently released and coming soon in demo data.
Okay. So demo data, I did talk about it briefly at our statewide leadership team meeting, but demo data is now available in MISchoolData. Well, it's always been available, but whether or not you had access to it was the story. It can actually now be assigned to an individual user's account, and then based on the level, then you can see that demo data. I think the next slide, I think I put, well, I didn't. So I'll just say there's some caveats to it, but basically super users only can assign the demo ISD location to an ISD user role. And with that, then you can see the demo data for the demo ISD, the demo district, and then the demo schools associated with that. You can see statewide data and the demo data only. And there's a couple of other things that will have to happen behind the scenes, but we can make it happen. So if you're doing a presentation, I mean, if you're putting like a PowerPoint together, or if you're doing a live demonstration and you want to use demo data, you can contact me. Or if Christy wants to volunteer, then, you know, she can do that as well, because there's very few of us that have that super user role that that can do that.
We are working on, you know, having a different way for demo data, but right now, if you need demo data, that's how to do it. And it works, it's awesome, but it does require just a little assist.
Okay. And then recent released or coming soon. We did have in July a new report called Coursework Enrollment and Success. It's one of our newer reports that our internal CEPI Power BI team created. It's meant to show you that information that you've submitted in the teacher student data link, the TSDL collection that links the students and teachers that instruct those students. It's kind of a dashboard style report, and we'll show you course enrollment, completion data, instructor count by demographic categories. You can search by a course subject area or delivery method. And I did include a couple of screenshots just so that you could kind of see what it looks like. Like the other reports, you know, we've got the school year drop down, and then you can set the location, and you can search by subject area and delivery methods. And that top portion right there where it has like statewide, all students, all subjects, directly below that report menu will populate those numbers that we've got preset for enrollment, percent of courses passed, and that and whatnot. And then it shows you in the graph below, whether it's a snapshot or a trend view, what you've selected, and you can change the view again to the number of students enrolled or the percent of courses passed on the left with those radio buttons for the chart metrics. On the next slide, you can then do a more detailed search to actually see and compare multiple locations, and you can choose to do it just in a data table, or there's a button that says show map, and if you click on that, the right hand side actually shows you the map where all of these courses or everything occurred. So you could search by location on the map, or just put your information in the drop-down menus. So yeah, if you don't want to, I mean, you can look at the map. When you're done looking at it, you can click the button that says hide map and just go back to the table view. And of course, the report has an about this report section, and it will provide much more information there about what's included in the report. What I did forget to do was tell you how to access that report or show you where in the navigation menu that's available. But I did add a hyperlink to the report. If you don't want to click the hyperlink, it is in the K-12 drop-down or navigation menu under the category of finance and district school information. So if you go to K-12, financial and district school information, then you'll see coursework, enrollment, and success in that navigation menu to select it. Okay, looks like we kind of got one of these slides out of order. So we've kind of already talked about demo data, but this is actually just a screenshot showing you if you pick the demo ISD, this is a report, snapshot view and data table of that with that demo data. So you can actually see, you know, the kind of results that you're going to get. And coming soon, the only thing that I put in there that I'm sure everybody is curious about is the assessment data, the 24-25 assessment data. I am not allowed to give you a date when it's going into preview or to public. MDE will announce that, and they choose the date that they announce that. But I can tell you, as in past years, the data are typically put into or released into preview right around that third week of August. And it stays in preview for 1 week, and then we make it public to everybody. And just thought I'd throw out there that there's no reason to believe that that won't be true this year. So it will be coming very soon. And we wanted to give you guys dates for updating that points of pride information in the EEM, so that you can see these updates in the school services and offerings collection in MISchoolData. The one coming up for the fall will be December 3rd. So people will need to have any of their contact information updated in the EEM and or points of pride information. And that is submitted through the EEM. We do have a little help guide for updating and how to edit that in the EEM available if you are not familiar with how to do that. Any questions?
I do have a few questions. Sorry, this is Sarah. I am wondering, I know that you said the user permission roles are for fully configurable, but is there a way to add like the default permissions that go with the roles on the sheet? Because I think a lot of district leaders would be like, they'd look at them and they'd be like, oh yeah, that works. I don't know that they always even know themselves what to check. So I didn't know if that was a possibility or not.
Yes, and those are that'll be in the manual. But maybe a quick reference would be helpful too. Did you have another question, Sarah?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't want to just hog the airspace if other people had them too. Okay, another question that I had is when I try to use the compare tool and look at assessment data, science and social studies are not part of the drop-down menu that will allow me to compare scores between buildings. Is there any plan to add those, or am I just not using it correctly and it's there and I just don't know where?
Are you talking about the upper half of the compare tool with the snapshot or trend chart, or are you talking about the tables at the bottom?
I'm talking about the trend chart.
Yeah. So we have actually talked to our internal team that created the compare tool, and we've asked them if they can add the science and social studies to that.
Wonderful.
So
Great.
that will be in the hopefully, I mean, I'm not sure what the schedule is for, but that was a recommendation. And so it has been addressed, and we're hoping that will be out and available for people soon.
Wonderful. I have one final question. When I try to use the compare tool and I try to select, like, let's say I want to compare ELA scores for, you know, elementary school across five different districts. And I go into like the drop down where I can like select the districts or the buildings that I'm interested in comparing. Even if I only select like 5 buildings, it always tells me that I have surpassed the allowable amount of buildings, which I think is like 20. And I just don't know what I am doing wrong that I can never, I always just give up.
So you're saying that if you only select 5 buildings, it tells you you've selected too many?
Yeah, and it will not compare the data. So maybe I just need to set up a private help session with you, but I thought, well, maybe if other people, you know, had that issue or
know what I'm talking about and have a solution, it could be an easy fix. But yeah, I just
Yeah.
really struggle with that one.
Okay, yeah, because you should be able to select up to 20 locations with the compare tool.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm not sure why, but yeah, we can certainly go through it.
Is that something recent, Sarah?
I don't think so.
'Cause it was,
I feel like it's always been an issue for me.
okay, so it was broken at one point, but then it's fixed, but it's been fixed for quite some time. So, yeah, I'd be interested in what your findings are.
Okay, well, I'll try it again and then I'll let you know if I am still having issues.
That would be great. Thank you. Anyone else? Any other questions? I'm going to pass it to Rhonda for professional learning resources and communication. Thanks, Rhonda.
All right, thank you, Christy. All right, I know we're over time here, so I'm gonna go real quickly. Again, just an important resource. Christy mentioned the account maintenance guide. There's just a few screenshots that will be added to that, but the link should not be compromised. So feel free to have that document handy. Regarding our outreach and communication, the link here is our schedule so far. We are still scheduling some events, but in August, of course, you're here today. We have GELN tomorrow, and our September dates are listed there. So just to know where we are. We also have I'm just going to go real quick through this because as you heard in our communication from June, our professional learning resources page is been reorganized, and it is open on the help and support menu. What you will find is it's no longer called professional or PD toolkit. It is now called resources for MISchoolData. So we're going to be doing some trainings around this statewide. And if you want to just do a quick navigation, you just go to the support menu, click the resources, and then you can review the resources that are available. Now, I would like to do a shout out to all of you that completed the MISchoolData spring survey. We've had 2 surveys and we will continue with annual surveys, but a lot of this is a result of your feedback from the field. So I know this has been a heavy lift at Seppi's desk to reorganize our website somewhat, but feel free to take a tour. We have 4 tabs that are available: the welcome, the presentations, and targeted resources, the main and user administration contacts, and you'll find that link here. Again, it is still under construction, but you're going to be happy with what you're going to see because that was apparently one of the issues that our users were having difficulty with. So more information on that with our sessions. Again, quick start guides. I highlighted the state assessment one because you know that is happening soon. So if you need any tour information with the downloading and whatnot, feel free to use that quick start guide, as well as the other ones that we have available. Again, our courses are still available in EduPass. Our FERPA and compliance is one of the most traveled courses that we have in EduPass, and those were updated last spring. Our talking points, we're still waiting for our final date with our trainings. We want to get that out to everyone. So I apologize. Some of you I heard from email wise. I'm glad you're reading them and they're relevant to you. We will continue those, and we're looking at a new format as well to launch our talking points. So stay tuned. And then these are some of the sessions that we're looking at. I will tell you, and I'll take this off, the one in February, we're looking at rescheduling. So this is what's coming soon, just so you know that they're on the radar. And we're looking at an AM, PM session. If any of you formerly attended any of the old Train the Trainer, we're going to look at the overview with the new resources in the morning and then more technical in the afternoon. So if you're interested in hosting, let us know. And then Stop by for future webinars with our technical updates. These are all set for the 2025-26 school year. It's hard to say that. The registration links are here, and we appreciate your attendance. Don't forget to record your attendance for today. And we had that in the chat earlier. And what questions might you have? I know we're going over our time.
I was kind of hanging on because I wanted to speak maybe with Christy about an individual that we're having trouble with getting in, but that's my only thing. So
Okay,
don't want to hijack everybody else's time.
great. Well, here's the follow-up. If you need any other support, we certainly appreciate you attending today. We know it's a very busy time of the year, and know that we're just an email away if you need any customized or individual help. So if you want to stay on, I'm going to stop the recording. I thank you again for attending. We do have a feedback survey here from our session. If you could please complete that, and I can put that link in the chat. This is what it looks like. And again, thank you for attending.
Thank you. As usual, we'll hang out for individual questions, but our meeting is ended. Thanks for joining.